So, ladies and gentlemen, let's kick things off today with some of the latest on the NSA spying story. As you know, we cover this a lot here. This is an ever-evolving story. There's new stuff every week. Hell, there's new stuff every day. So let's get to something we didn't have a chance to cover yet. So overall, you guys have been following this. You know that many supporters of the NSA, many government officials have said, hey, we're not doing massive spying on Americans. Oh no. We're not collecting massive data of Americans. Oh no. This whole NSA story, it's overblown. It's old news. It's not a big deal. Despite what Edward Snowden says, despite what these NSA slides say, despite what countless other whistleblowers have said, do not worry. Do not worry, Americans, you can trust your government, and you can trust us when we say that we are not spying on you. Trust us. So last week, ladies and gentlemen, a Republican in the House of Representatives, actually a Tea Party member of all people, Justin Amash, along with Democrat John Conyers, they're both from Michigan, they authored a very, very simple amendment to the Defense Appropriations Bill. This amendment read very, very simply, quote, "This order limits the collection of any tangible things, including telephone numbers dialed, telephone numbers of incoming calls, and the duration of calls that may be authorized to be collected pursuant to this order to those tangible things that pertain to a person who is the subject of an investigation described in Section 501 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act of 1978. End quote. So that's a little legalese for you there, but what that would do, what that amendment would do, friends, is it would end the bulk collection of phone data of every single solitary American that the NSA is currently collecting and storing. Though again, the government and the NSA supporters say they're not really spying on all Americans. We're collecting all this data, but we're not spying on you. So that what this says, what the amendment says is, if you are not the subject of an investigation, an actual investigation, a real investigation, they could not collect and store your phone records. Seems pretty damn simple enough. Seems pretty straightforward. That is what we want. If the investigators have some reason to think someone might be a terrorist, you get a warrant and then you actually go and get the records. That's when you collect the records. You don't just collect everyone's records. So last week there was a vote, a simple vote on that amendment. A day before the vote, the head of the NSA, General Keith Alexander, panicked. He panicked and he called a last-minute classified meeting with members of the House of Representatives. He actually held two different meetings, one with Republicans and one with Democrats. I guess they were probably saying different things to different sides. The Republicans want to hear one thing, Democrats want to hear another. I don't know. Anyway, he had two meetings with both the Democrats and Republicans in the House to tell them, no, that amendment cannot pass. It cannot pass. And while, we aren't spying on all Americans, while we're not spying on all Americans, folks, we need to be able to spy on all Americans. That's what we need to do. We need to spy on all Americans, but we're not. So after the meeting, apparently it didn't go superbly well, so the White House actually issued a statement which read, quote, In light of the recent unauthorized disclosures, the president has said that he welcomes a debate about how best to simultaneously safeguard both our national security and the privacy of our citizens. End quote. We'll get back to that. That's nice, though, right? That's nice. After these unauthorized disclosures, now you're happy to have a debate about what you've been doing in secret and how most of the program is still secret, how the FISA laws are secret, the FISA rulings are secret, it's all secret. Sure, it's all secret, but we sure do welcome the debate. We welcome the debate on these secrets that we won't tell you any information about. We welcome that debate. That's nice. That's nice, President Obama. I'm glad you welcome the debate on things you will not disclose. The president, the White House went on to say in their statement, quote, "We oppose the current effort in the House to hastily dismantle one of our intelligence community's counterterrorism tools. This blunt approach is not the product of an informed, open, or deliberative process. We urge the House to reject the Amish Amendment and instead move forward with an approach that appropriately takes into account the need for a reasoned review of what tools can best secure the nation." End quote. So, folks, according to the White House, this blunt approach is not the product of an informed, open, or deliberative process. Oh, no, it's not. Excuse me, let me ask you a question. Do you perhaps find it, I don't know, just a little bit, just a tad bit hypocritical that those who have been secretly spying on us are saying that an actual debate in public in the House of Representatives, they are saying that is not open, that is not deliberative? Also, how in the hell are we supposed to be, air quotes, informed if you have been keeping it secret? How? Anyway, before the vote happened in the House, Ron Wyden was giving a whole bunch of interviews about the NSA and about spying. Before the vote, while Senator Wyden was actually giving a speech on surveillance, saying things about this, he actually said about smartphones, he said, quote, "This piece of technology we consider vital to the conduct of our everyday personal and professional life happens to be a combination phone bug, listening device, location tracker, and hidden camera." End quote. He went on to say, "Without adequate protections built into the law, there is no way that Americans can ever be sure that the government isn't going to interpret its authorities more and more broadly year after year until the idea of a telescreen monitoring your every move turns from dystopia into reality. The government's authority to collect information on law-abiding American citizens is essentially limitless." That is Senator Ron Wyden. So while Ron Wyden is saying that, again, quote, "the government's authority to collect information on law-abiding American citizens is essentially limitless," while he is saying that it's essentially limitless, while he's saying things like that, warning us all, while he's doing that, we have back in the House Democratic whip Steny frickin' Hoyer whipping against the NSA amendment, whipping against it. In fact, going full Cheney. He went full Cheney. He wrote that the amendment bars the NSA and other agencies from collecting the records of terrorists. It bars us from monitoring terrorists, which isn't true. It's not true. That is a lie. That is why it's full Cheney, because it's a friggin' lie. It limits the collection to people who are actually suspected of being a terrorist. But hey, according to Steny Hoyer, anyone can be a terrorist, right? Steny Hoyer, anyone can be a terrorist. You could be a terrorist. Your spouse could be a terrorist. Your mom, your neighbor, hell, they could all be terrorists. So Steny Hoyer thinks we need to record and store everyone's records because anyone can be a terrorist. You don't want your terrorist neighbor to kill you and your children while you sleep, do you? Do you? In addition to Steny friggin' Hoyer, Nancy Pelosi, here we go. Nancy Pelosi also urged Democrats to do what the White House tells them to do and vote down the amendment. Let's get to the vote, though. Let's get to the vote. And I'll be honest, it is a good news, bad news vote. Bad news first. The amendment lost. The amendment was, in fact, voted down. It was voted down. That's bad news. The good news is, though, actually, folks, it really didn't lose by very much. Most of the people who follow this, most of the people who actually were whipping this, actually expected it to lose by a whole lot more. This amendment only lost by 12 votes. It only lost by 12, which means if we convince 7 more House members, it would actually pass. That's how the swing is. It lost by 12. We convinced 7. It swings. It goes back. And the vote was actually oddly bipartisan, everyone. It was oddly bipartisan because it actually got divided up pretty evenly among the parties. 94 Republicans joined 111 Democrats in voting for the amendment, which would bar the spying. In voting it down, 134 Republicans joined 83 Democrats. That's right, you heard me. 83 Democrats. 83 Democrats voted to continue the bulk surveillance of American citizens. That sucks, right? That sucks, doesn't it? So, on the other hand, look, I expect the worst of Republicans all the time, but hey, 94 Republicans voted to get rid of it. So, absolutely, tip your hat to them. They deserve credit on this issue. 94 Republicans voted for the amendment. So again, look, here's the deal. We actually only need 7 more members of the House of Representatives. And of course, you expect, blue dogs to vote for spying, for limitless spying. You expect Steny Hoyer to be Steny Hoyer and be horrible. But Nancy Pelosi really, not only did she vote against the amendment, she urged other Democrats to vote it down as well. So let me say this also. Let me say this. Some other normally fairly okay Democrats also voted against the amendment as well. I'm going to list a few that you should know. And this is something we should know as progressives. Jan Schakowsky, Sheila Jackson Lee, Louis Frankel, Corrine Brown, Luis Gutierrez, Eddie Johnson, Hank Johnson, and Joe Kennedy. All of those last 8 I just mentioned, all of them are members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. And they all voted against the amendment. The rest of the House Progressive Caucus voted for it, so that's good. But those eight members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, 9 if you include Nancy Pelosi, those 8 or 9, that is literally enough to swing this vote. I gotta tell you, folks, honestly, Schakowsky is the one that hurts me the most. That's the one that really hurts me personally the most. When I lived in Chicago not that long ago, I saw Schakowsky give speeches more than once at ACLU events. The fact that she voted against this amendment is frankly really, really disappointing to me. Pelosi, is disappointing too, but it's a little more predictable if you look at Pelosi's recent history. Ross Story actually had a really amusing thing on Pelosi. Reading from Ross Story, quote, "On Thursday, Pelosi sought signatures among her colleagues for a letter to President Barack Obama listing, quote, lingering questions and concerns about the data collection program and seeking more information, including whether the bulk metadata telecommunications collection sufficiently protects Americans' privacy," end quote. That's nice, isn't it, folks? That's nice. Nancy Pelosi is writing a letter. How nice of her. She's writing a letter to the president. She's writing a letter and she wants people to sign her letter to ask Mr. President, please, please explain to us how we're wrong to question your authority about the NSA. Please tell us, and we're not going to do anything about it if you don't. We're not going to actually use our authority. When push comes to shove, when she actually has to do her job as a check on executive authority, she did exactly what Barack Obama and the White House wanted. She did what they said. The White House continues to collect all of our data. The White House wants to continue to collect all of our data, and Nancy Pelosi voted for them to continue doing just that. She voted for them to continue collecting our data. That, friends, that is bad news. That is the bad news. But here's the deal. There is, again, let's go back to the good news. We are only 7 House members away. That's not very many. This is very doable. And if you look at the polls, the tide on this is actually shifting. We'll be right back.